we are somewhat over time, but we did need to take the time on the resolution process. So we're now into new business, and I do have one new business that was already brought up at the beginning when I asked for approving the agenda. And that was Arden Schneckenberger that wanted to bring up the clean fuel standard. So if I can ask that he be unmuted, that he can address the group.
Hello? Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, this clean fuel standard, we already had a resolution pertaining to this, but my understanding is this could come into effect quite soon, maybe as early as this callback of Parliament. So I would just like to know what the status is of this right now and what we can do about it.
Yes, so we can give you sort of an update. Maybe we do want to bring all our delegates and members up to speed somewhat on this process. So a couple of weeks ago, AEFC and Environment Canada did reach out to stakeholders to have a dialogue on the proposals to the regulation. And it came obvious right off the bat, as an individual farmer, I think it was only me and maybe one or two other farmers that were on that call, that it was more around concern for land use purpose, and those regulations as they were proposed, we as an organization that represent 28,000 farmers cannot consent to those regulations as they stand today. So when we were on that call, I did mention regional specific concerns. They were taken in consideration. Now, yesterday there has been an update call, and I don't really want to go into the specifics that were discussed because myself, I was not on the call, but if Crosby, if you would want to weigh in on that, because you had some of your staff that was involved, and maybe we can get some clarification on the proposed changes to the regulation, because they become now, they're actually considering them, and I hope that they're going to adopt them as they're brought forward, but there's still points of concern. I do want to bring that forward. So Crosby, if you want to weigh in on this one.
Sure. Thanks, Marcus. I hope everyone can hear me. Yeah, just a bit of background in addition to what Marcus said. The clean fuel standard is something the federal government's worked on for a number of years, but it kind of went on the back burner, and recently in the last couple of months has come up with this government stating urgency to get something you know, basically this fall. And so they've essentially rushed the process, and our overwhelming concern is lack of transparency and lack of consultation with those that are affected, especially farmers. And so that's the number one thing. But there are a few serious concerns in terms of what it would mean for corn ethanol. And, you know, there's detail, and I think we're going to want to do some more communication now out to members and to yourselves on the details. But riparian zone setbacks, carbon intensity, lack of information on that, restrictions on land clearing or previously cleared land, and certification requirements as well. On top of that, potential trade issues. So there's a lot of issues. There was a meeting yesterday where Environment and Climate Change Canada, who's leading the file and the regulation, have proposed, you know, basically some changes or a little bit of, we need to dig in a little further, but it could be some softening of that, but not going all the way. And so whatever comes out, the position of GFO is that it has to be recognizing the value of corn ethanol to the clean fuel stream, and not be penalizing farmers, not be taking land out of production, not creating more red tape. So it's ongoing. I think we're going to see some movement. We have to. but I don't think we're completely there yet.
Yeah, thank you, Crosby, for that
Specific update. Now,
I
I
am
am
also
also
urging
urging
our
our
farmer
farmer
members
members
to maybe
to
reach
maybe
out to
reach
your
out to
elected
your elected
officials,
officials, as
this
it will be
our
our
next
next
battle
battle.
in first of
All land use
and how we
have to conduct our business on our farms, and furthering maybe land development. There's probably not many farms in Ontario that would kind of fit within that box that they're proposing at the moment, and that's the largest concern, because a lot of farms did clean up some of their farms, just a corner of their farm, or did some maintenance on, let's say, a bush line or a fence line or something like that, which would, at the moment, the proposal is basically a 0.5 of a hectare. And that's a minor, well, it's actually a small area, but it can have huge impact that can basically reduce or totally eliminate your access to biofuel production. And as Ontario still wants to develop more production land up north, because we still want to make sure that land development in the northern part of Ontario continues, as there's more potential. That has to be taken in consideration as well, because those areas are somewhat called the future and the next frontier for Ontario, and that shouldn't be diminished, and that there should be a stall on that front. So our next steps are basically going back to them, saying that this is not something that we're going to be accepting as it is written at the moment, with the modifications or changes proposed, brings us more in line to that, that there might be some, you can call it grandfather clauses or whatever changes in there, but it still has flaws. And I think they need to be recognized, and we will be coming back to our membership on this one specifically to brief you and address the situation as it unfolds, because this regulation can be put in place very quickly by the federal government. And I would say that some of the provincial jurisdictions do have something to say in that as well. Arden, do you have any more questions, concerns on this as we move forward on it?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was any provisions for people that practice the 4 Rs, do use minimum tillage, use cover crops, that kind of thing. Are they giving us any credit for what we do?
So Arden, during the discussion that I was on, there was one question that was asked to them at the time: if the federal government is going down the road of the European model, why aren't we being compensated similar to the Europeans? And at that point, it was not considered as one of those considerations to compensate farmers. And that would, well, what you're mentioning, Arden, would fall under that compensation somewhat. And that's the next part that we have to work on, because with cover crops and all that, we're still carbon sinks that would have to be recognized, because at the end, we cannot only just give off and have it bury us in the deep hole. So maybe what I can propose here, there will be somewhat a communication going out to all farmer members in the short term of where this is, and we keep you up to speed. And I'm nearly sure that we're going to need the farmers' input on where we're going to go from here on with this, because this is going to be detrimental to the Ontario grain and oilseed sector by itself, and not just corn production, but we're talking about biofuels, which impact as well feedstock for livestock industry. Okay, is there any further questions on this question? Okay, so I just got word that there's an ask for the full legislation. So that can actually be provided because that I think it's an open process, and we do have the means of forwarding that to all our members.
Yeah, I can mute. Yep. If I could just clarify too, I think where the government's at right now is they have bits and pieces that they've shared in terms of their intent, but the full legislation hasn't been tabled in Gazette 1. And so that's part of the challenge too, is that they've indicated that we won't see it until they've actually put it into the formal Gazette. And so we've asked for more transparency there, but certainly we can share what we know, which is a fair bit.
Yeah, so that will be forwarded as soon as possible. Okay. Is there any other questions or other business to be brought up? Okay. Do we have any other? Okay. So I got word that there's no other questions or remarks. So I will ask for adjournment, and I want to thank everybody that you have taken time of your busy day to be on the AGM virtual meeting. It's really appreciated. We try to do our best with the technicalities of making it as smooth as possible, and I think we've achieved that. So a big thank you for all the staff and the people that worked hard on getting this together. So I do need somebody to adjourn the meeting. If there's somebody that would put a name forward. Right. Matt Langford. Okay, so thank you very much. Bye.